Hi, Brian Whitens filling in for Buck Levasseur. Quite possibly no animal has played a more significant role in the settling of the Great Lakes region in the Upper Peninsula than the beaver. Tonight we'll pay a visit to my UP trapper connection, Bob Whitens, to find out what it takes to get a beaver ready for market.
The old traders would travel by canoe to the various pickup points around the Great Lakes areas, mouth of rivers.
Also a word from the DNR about the UP Deer Advisory Team. Then we're off to Merriman for the United Sportsman's Club's annual Gun Knife Show. And on tonight's Only in the UP segment, nothing spices up your day like a shot of Polish fire. That's all right here, right now on Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill, the eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
The North American beaver, also known as the American or Canadian beaver, is the largest rodent in North America. Its fur consists of long, coarse outer hairs and short, fine inner hairs, prime material for hats and clothing. In the 17 and 1800s, voyageurs and trappers explored this region in pursuit of these valuable pelts. The beaver pelt was the driving force of the fur trade in the north, and the fundamental factor in its exploration and early settlement. I talked to Bob Whitens to find out what's involved in preparing a beaver pelt for market.
The thing about a beaver is that it's unique as far as skinning is that it's different than any other animal. Every other animal that's skinned is skinned what we call cased form, where you skin them, pull the pelt off, and you stretch them on a frame, and they're either shipped with the fur on the inside like a mink or an otter muskrat, or they're put on the fur on the outside like a coyote and a fox. But the beaver, ever since the days of the old fur trade, was always shipped in the flat form because of its unique shape. Beaver's kind of a round, fat-bodied animal. They found by shipping them flat, they could pile them better, and they could pack them and stack them in bales and put them on the old canoes when they haul them down the rivers and so on. So that tradition continues even yet today. So that's the way the beaver are put up. And again, there's two ways of skinning these guys. One is to skin them what we call clean skinning, and that's what this one is, where you skin them and try to keep as much fat as possible off the pelt and keep it onto the carcass, so you have a little less fleshing to do at a later time. There's still a little fat on here yet that I'll flesh off after I tack it up. The other way a lot of guys do it is that they'll skin them rough and then they'll put them on a beam, and I'll just demonstrate how to do that. And you lay the pelt on the fleshing beam, similar to this, with the nose up here and kind of get it hooked here. Then we use what we call a fleshing knife. This is a really sharp steel, sharpened on both edges here. We can use the curve either way. Keep it very sharp, and it's used to work that fat off the animal. Now in this case, like I said, I skinned it clean, so I have very little of anything left on here. In this case, there's a few little pieces here. I'll just kind of work that off. You know, I could take this stuff off even with a small fleshing tool after the animal is put on the board. The big thing is with these, you got to be careful you don't want to cut the pelt. Now you see what we got here. We got a heavy piece of plywood with some ovals marked on here. These are the shapes we use on here for the purpose of sizing the beaver. Generally, they want the beaver in kind of an oval shape. In the old days, when the trapper sent them in, some guys would stretch them round, some guys would stretch them really oval, some guys would stretch them teardrop, and it got to be a really problem up for grading them at the fur auctions. So now they have a standardized shape, which we mark on the boards, and we kind of follow that shape. We're going to get a rough idea on how big to stretch this guy just by pulling him out a little bit. Now, he's not a real big beaver, so we're going to try to follow the smaller ring here and just give us a pattern. I do, I just use nails. I always start with up here in the top. Now the lip area of the beaver here is going to be cut off after. So we always start right here by the eyes. We start with a nail right up here, and I'm going to nail that. Get pretty much on my line here just to get a start here. You don't have to follow these marks. These are just general shapes. One thing about the beaver, probably one of the most unique animals that we have in the wild. There's a lot of things about the beaver that are unique only to the beaver. They're one of the few animals that can actually control their own environment. They build dams for water supply so they can get to their food supply. They mate for life. They can build dams on the smallest little stream all the way up to a 100-foot river. If they can find a good supply of aspen trees and there's a place where they can get a dam across, and invariably it's going to be at the spot where a couple of ridges come together, where they have a natural assistance from the bank, guarantee you they'll find a place to put that dam. They build their houses. We all know out in their flooded pond, they travel to their house underwater, and they survive all winter by going under that ice next to their house and eating that feed that they put in there. Tops of those popple trees that they stuck in there in the previous fall that I've seen beaver dams from a foot high to 7 feet high already. They can get a high water, rain, or a flood and wash a chunk of the dam out, and overnight they'll have that thing plugged up. Beaver is one of the few animals that never stops growing. The beaver grows throughout his life. Keeps getting bigger, keeps getting heavier. There have been cases where beaver up to 90, 100 pounds have been caught. They are a truly amazing animal. When the French Canadians came here in the early 1700s to trade with the Native Americans for the furs, of course the beaver was the pelt of choice. And the way that they stretched them in those days was they'd form a hoop out of a tree branches, and the animal would be punched and laced around the outside and laced around that hoop and stretched in that fashion. So once they were dry, they could take them out and they'd stack them in piles. And spring of the year, the old traders would travel by canoe to the various pickup points around the Great Lakes areas, mouth of rivers, pick up them animals in bales, load them in the canoes, and down the rivers all the way to Mackinac Island was a big trading center, Detroit. Fur trade really was the thing that probably had more to do with settling the UP than anything else. So. And the reason the beaver was so popular, of course, is that that time in Europe there was the beaver hat craze, where everybody had to have a tall beaver hat. So beaver fur was used for that purpose because it was such a durable fur. So many thousands of beaver went to France before them into beaver hats, and they took so many beaver out of here that by the late 1800s, they had to close the season in Michigan for quite a few years, and even up until about the 1930s, when the price of beaver took a big jump. During the Depression, a lot of guys were able to get $50 and $60 for a beaver pelt, and at that time, that was like a month's wages. So the beaver trapping was become a pretty popular thing amongst guys that were without work them days. So beaver population pretty well got decimated, so they closed the season in Michigan for a number of years in the 30s into the 40s to let them reestablish. So, and right now they're pretty well reestablished. The beaver are maintaining a good population, and really what fur harvesting is all about is just to maintain a good healthy population, keep the animals in check, keep them from getting disease, and making sure there's always some around there for the future. You see, there's still some give in here. I probably could have stretched that out a little bit bigger, but when this dries now, that's going to give that a chance to tighten up, maintain its thickness of the leather here. If you stretch them too tight, they'll tend to have a thin appearance, and when they grate them, they look through them through the light, and they can tell if they've been stretched. They have leg holes here. Some people sew them together. They use dental floss. I just take a couple of nails here, just close them up so they look a little neater. Once we get them in this shape, trim the outside out. We have a little excess like here in the corner, sometimes around the tail. You just want to get rid of that so you keep a nice rounded appearance. And up here as well, they don't want the lips and the nose. You just cut that right off there. We like to pull the pelt up on those nails a little bit to let that air get down there when these pelts are drying, so that they'll dry at an even rate. In about 2 or 3 days of the right air flow, they'll be pretty dry, and then you can take them off the boards. Yeah, when the beavers are done and they're dried and you take them off, this is pretty much what they look like. They look like that on the inside. And then the outside, of course, is like this. Now, before I ship these guys, what I usually do is I usually lay them out, comb them all out good, get all this matting out of here. So we want to make sure they're looking good to the graders. So that's all the things that a trapper does before he actually ships his pelts.
A quick reminder, the UP Trappers Association District 3 will be sponsoring their 8th annual Trappers Workshop on February 2nd at the Hermansville Community Club. The purpose of the workshop is to introduce kids to the great sport of trapping. Find out more at uptrappers.com. The UP Deer Advisory Team met in Iron Mountain on January 19th to discuss, among other things, buck management in the Upper Peninsula.
So the deer advisory teams were founded in 2011 after the adoption of the 2010 deer management plan. That was when we adopted it. And essentially the idea was to get regional deer advisory teams. So we have 3. There's one in the Upper Peninsula, the Northern Lower, and Southern Michigan. We wanted to try and get a more focused idea of hunter desires and where they would like to see the deer herd go in their specific regions. So in doing so, we opened it up to applications from at-large members, so just members that are concerned citizens that are really interested in deer management from various communities. And we also opened it up to representatives of organizations. And we narrowed it down from there, and since then, its inception, we met with the team twice. We might meet twice a year. Since then, this is the 4th meeting for the Upper Peninsula Deer Advisory Team. This team was actually formed earlier than any of the other teams, so they've met quite a few more times than the other teams. And it's just a great opportunity to get hunters in one room and discuss deer management, how they feel about it. They make requests of us of things that they'd like to talk more about, so we have time in between the meetings, since they're twice a year, basically a preseason and a postseason meeting, to bring that data together and show them and see what it is that they think the hunting community might want. For example, this meeting we were discussing buck management options for the Upper Peninsula. The plan now is the team will bring forward a recommendation to us, and then we're actually going to have open houses throughout the Upper Peninsula for the public to come and discuss these different options and tell us what they want in their Upper Peninsula deer herd. And it's their opportunity to get to know the Upper Peninsula Deer Advisory Team as well as the Upper Peninsula Wildlife Division staff. So it's a great opportunity to get a lot of conversation going with hunters in the area.
Well, today's meeting was a meeting of the Upper Peninsula Deer Advisory Team, and they were mainly looking at the different buck options analysis that they had requested. They had asked us to take a look and analyze different potential options to advance more bucks from a 1.5 year old age class to an older age class, particularly 2.5 years old. And so we took a look at 3 different options that were there. 1 buck, a no spike rule, or 2 points on 1 antler minimum, and a 3 points on 1 antler minimum. And those were the different options that they were looking at. We also provided an analysis of the current, what's called the Hunter's Choice regulations, the regulations that have been in place since 2008.
Don't miss the Woodtick Music Festival in Hermansville, Michigan. 4 days of great bluegrass, country, folk, blues, and rock and roll. Over 25 bands, fun for the entire family. Carry-ins welcome, kids 12 and under free. Buy your tickets and campsites and find out everything you need to know online at woodtickfestival.com. That's woodtickfestival.com. The Woodtick Music Festival in Hermansville, Michigan.
We have a gun show that's held twice a year. We hold one in January, just after the first of the year. It's always a second weekend in January. And we also hold one the second weekend in September, just before bird season. Our shows have been going on for approximately 15 years. We're a nonprofit organization, but we do raise money, and all the money is used for club operations, youth shooting. We do a lot with 4-H. We do some sponsoring for them. We do hunter safety. We have all the kids up here shooting, and we also have a youth shooting. And we allow the youth to shoot for free, and this is one way that we are able to fund it. The type of stuff that we have at the show, we have a lot of used guns. That's probably the biggest thing. And we have some new guns. There's just a variety. What you think you might not ever see, you might see. This is a musketoon from the 1700s, the best we can figure out, and it's operable. I don't know if I'd want to shoot it. It weighs about probably close to 20 pounds, so it's not something that you're going to carry around too much, but back in the day, they did. Well, there's shotguns, there's rifles, there's pistols, there's BB guns, pellet guns, crossbows, bow and arrows, and they do leather or related holsters, belts, stuff like that.
I'm with Adams Holsters out of Channing, and we do custom holsters. We can make a holster for any firearm. We've got 100 and some blue guns that we mold to. Our holsters are handmade, Herman oak leather, best leather made in the United States. Even our thread's American made. If it isn't American made, it doesn't go in our holsters. My son's the maker, him and his wife. They're all hand boned, hand molded, and we make shoulder holsters. We make inside the pants, outside the pants, cross holsters for hunting. We've got all the exotic hides from elephant to ostrich to shark, anything you want. We've been doing it for quite a while. We've made several thousand holsters, belts, and everything else.
And then we have a lot of knives. We have knife collectors that come, marbles guys, 2 or 3 custom knife makers that come to the show. We have people that, refinish guns, restore them. We got a pretty good variety. We have like 60-some tables here, over 60 tables. A lot of the tables are individuals. We have a lot of private guys that come and, they're reducing the collection. A lot of older people that are just, family's not interested, so, it's time to part ways with some of their, stuff. So we got stuff that anywhere from $25 up to $40,000. So, there's a pretty good variety of guns, knives, and miscellaneous. Furs. We got people selling related stuff. We have muzzle loaders. We have a lot of people, not really local, but local to the UP. They come from Houghton, Hancock. They come from Sault Ste. Marie, St. Ignace. We have several from Lower Michigan coming in. We've got a couple of collectors that are just displaying stuff that are from Wisconsin. Pretty much of a wide variety. We have a couple of people, if you got a gun and you don't know what it's worth, you don't know what it is, you can bring it in and there's always somebody that's going to tell you what it is and how much it's worth. You don't have to sell it, but if you want to get a value or something, that's probably the best way. You can look stuff up in books, but, books are only a reference. You're going to get what people would actually think it's worth that know the guns that are around the market. People just come and have fun. They enjoy the guns and the knives and different things that go along with that, and everybody has fun. We do a lot of stuff for a little club. We just did a thing with the DNR that we did a wildlife habitat. We do a lot of shotgun shooting events. We have skeet range, we have a trap range, we have an awesome sporting clays range through the woods. We shoot 5-stand and skeet all year long. And we also do cowboy action shooting, IDAP pistol, indoor pistol. We have a pistol league, silhouette shooting with the high-power rifles. We do archery. We do youth shooting. We have a fairly active club. It's something that's needed, and we feel good about it, and we hope to keep her going.
It's time for Only in the UP, the segment of the show that highlights the friendly, creative, crafty, and inventive spirit of those of us who live here. It's about that stuff that makes the UP the greatest place on earth to live. I traveled nearly to the end of the Keweenaw where I met Ray Weglars and my new favorite hot sauce made right here in the UP.
I've been making Ray's Polish Fire for about 20 years. I love to eat and I love to cook. I grew up in an American-Polish household in the Detroit area, and the food my mom made was great, very nourishing, but very bland. So when I left home and went to college, I started experimenting, and I got introduced for the first time to spicy food. As a Polak, I didn't get much of that. So after college, when I settled down and started having family, I started experimenting with different recipes, and I took about 10 years of experimentation before my wife Vicki finally said, "You're experimenting enough, write this recipe down, people love it," and that's how Ray's Polish Fire was born. So Ray's Polish Fire is made with 10 ingredients. 9 of the 10 ingredients are certified organic, and they include organic shoyu, organic apple cider vinegar, organic molasses, organic lemon juice, and ume plum vinegar. Also, Ray's Polish Fire has 5 organic herbs. One of the secret so-called ingredients is organic turmeric powder. Organic turmeric is a wonder herb. It's amazingly intense flavor that gives Polish fire some of its unique flavor. It's also very good for the immune system. It fights cancer. It's anti-inflammatory. Some of the other organic ingredients include organic garlic granules. It also contains organic ginger, which is very good for your digestion and your immune system. And the only thing that's really hot, Brian, in Polish fire is the organic cayenne pepper. And it's lovely stuff, organic cayenne. It stimulates the mucosal membranes in your mouth and other areas, but it doesn't irritate. We make it and bottle it here, and then Vicki and I distribute it ourselves in Michigan, and we sell it to co-ops and natural food stores and cafes. The Keweenaw Co-op sells more Polish fire than any other place right now. The Sweetwater Cafe in Marquette sells and promotes Polish fire in a big way for us, as does the Marquette Food Co-op. There's a lot of other venues in the Upper Peninsula that have Polish fire. The newest one is Econo Foods in Houghton, and they've just picked it up in the last few weeks, and it's selling really well. We do have a distributor in Wisconsin and Minnesota area. We only retail the 5-ounce bottle with the shaker cap and the woozy insert, but to friends who use a lot of Polish fire, we do provide some pint bottles to people who use a lot. And there are a few people who use it so much that I've been selling it to them in gallons directly. Personally, I don't like really hot things. I won't eat jalapeno or habanero hardly ever, and I won't touch a ghost pepper. My goal in making Polish fire was to make a sauce that you could use on a wide variety of foods in different circumstances that doesn't overwhelm with heat, but has deep flavor. And I don't know how people rate hot sauces. On a 0 to 10 scale, I would give it a 5 for heat and a 10 for flavor, is what I would do.
I like Polish fire. I like Polish fire. You might like it too. Raised Polish fire hot sauce.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Monday night, right here on Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.